that I have been focused on lately has been the antediluvian, these so-called biblical flood, if you will. On average, about every 10,000 years, you can expect a catastrophe to happen. For the most part, the civilization is wiped out, and it's a horrendous catastrophe. It wipes out the pre-existing civilization and most of the people on Earth. And so we must start anew.
The consistency of reports from around the world of catastrophes, they're amazingly similar. A lot of people thought it's just what people dream up. They have a lot of time where they're dreaming or whatever. It's just stuff that people naturally come up with. Velikovsky thought it was catastrophes that people witnessed and remembered. It's very different.
What's called the 4 o'clock rapids, 56 concentric. Actually, it's less than that because these have started to undergo rotation. Here's one on Navajo Reservation, Bronze Shield, the Middle East. This is a 56 ray from Kazakhstan. Somebody locked the doors because at this point it started escaping, but this is a 56 ray circle axis beam from China. And these are actually drawn as paintbrushes. Yeah, the axis stuff up here, the tree coming up, and the 56 are there. In Arizona, it's the same thing. Pick that one up. This is up there. I think that's probably focus is also on 56 tons of plasma, so we would expect it.
It's not what they told you in school because they did it nice and coded. But again, remember, the people in the U.S. government who saw the sun flare up and get the information back from the moon when we brought the stuff back, they were mostly scared. The sun does something terrible. They didn't know when. They felt they had no power to change it. See, our tools have shown us things that they couldn't have possibly seen 50 and 70 years ago.
It's one thing to look back at our ancestors and the stories they tell and say, you know what? You guys did a pretty good job inventing geometry, philosophy, architecture, but we're going to just take your most important stories and just going to pretend that you guys are crazy and make them up. That's one giant thing, especially when they could predict eclipses. What you got on the left there is a piece of muscovite mica. This was taken here on Earth. It is only the 3rd ever found rare cosmological event, they say. All of the black stuff around there, those are normal fission tracks. That's real cosmic rays. That's what cosmic rays look like when they hit. But there's this exclusion zone around what they call the rare cosmological event. They know for a fact that it's not electrons or positrons. And they represent a residually input positive charge that didn't discharge outward, but it discharged from the center. And it looks exactly like the cosmic jet that blasts out of a star when it's born. It looks like the cosmic jets that you see from the center of a galaxy when it eats a star. And so how do you get a residual positive charge to basically bathe a crystal such that it takes it in and you can't discharge it out? It's still bathed in the stuff. It has to discharge in the center. There's actually missing atoms in the center. No, they're not really missing. And I would argue that, while not definitive, something tremendous from the sun is not a terrible first hypothesis.
The galactic trigger, the dust and gas mechanism for superflares and recurrent nova, the evidence on the moon, the stories of our ancestors, the global nature of the disaster, all point to the sun as the destroyer. But is it a superflare or a micronova? It doesn't really matter. To look at this question, we will first investigate the recent history of magnetic events on Earth, starting with the one ongoing now. The key element in this overall process is one that has already begun to unfold again here, and the clock is ticking as we move deeper into the shift. We know that Earth's magnetic field has begun an acceleration beyond its normal wander, and coincident with that is the loss of field strength. Magnetic reversals as rapid as 80 years have been recorded in the paleomagnetic record, and and we are already more than double that many years into the current shift. While moving more slowly than the record-fast reversals, things have begun to intensify. The Earth's magnetic field is currently decreasing by approximately 5% per decade, with the North and South magnetic poles set to meet in the eastern Indian Ocean. While the North is moving much faster, the South has already left the continent of Antarctica. The timeline is on the scale of a few decades to 100 years, presuming things don't accelerate any further. Seem impossible? Well, these are the current motions, and that is not disputed. But this magnetic meeting point scenario also has interesting coincidences, and not a one of them is bright and sunny. First, this region was an incredibly interesting place a few years ago, until the data disappeared.
Buoy in event mode, south of Bali. For those who monitor the ocean, this is a familiar sight. The tail of this buoy starts with another, and begins long before there was such a thing as station 53046.
In 2 miles, take exit
You will
32
notice
for
the primary
California
areas of
78
coverage
west toward
from Solomon
Oceanside.
Islands, east to the Kermadec Islands, and up around to Sumatra, all locations of powerful earthquakes in the last few years, except this central 3, including 53046 in the middle. Like I said, our story begins with a different buoy, 56003 to the right, which has had a turbulent life, as you can see here. In October of 2008, they put her down, and it was barely a month before the wild readings appeared. She was immediately taken offline. During the time she was down, another buoy was put in, 56001 to the left, put down about 350 days later in October of 2009. She ran fine. 03 came back at a much lower sea depth, but in the exact same location before jumping back up in 2011. Station 56001 began deviating in November of 2011, and one must assume it was about that time they hatched a plan to add the third buoy to the group, 53046. It was a few months later in mid-2012 when she began to send back information. Within a few months the action began. Short but significant drops in the sea depth. This channel began reporting rapid seafloor rise, and the buoy was taken out of commission by the Australian BOM. Clearly it is back and in the exact same place, but when you factor in the further movement of the last 36 hours, more than 100 more meters, which is barely visible here at the end of the chart, we have officially eclipsed the 1200 meter mark, or just about 4,000 feet. This could be volcanic, could be related to the fault destabilization described in many of our previous videos. It looks like this part of the world is a significant place to watch.
One of the biggest alternative news stories of that time was that a few days after this video aired, the buoy disappeared.
In a quarter mile,
and to
take
this
exit
day, both
32
it
for
and
California
its data
78
are
west
gone.
toward Oceanside.
Further complicating the story is that this region forms a geographically small triangle with the strongest magnetic point on Earth, the South Magnetic Pole, and with the Dragon's Triangle, Asia's version of the Bermuda Triangle, and indeed, that new pole position is near where those airplanes disappeared in recent years.
Take exit
Now, since
32,
one
then
pole
take the
might
California
reasonably be
78
expected
west
to
ramp.
emerge on the opposite side of Earth, we find that to be here, in South America, or perhaps just offshore. Forming a geographically small triangle with the weakest magnetic region on Earth,
Take the
South
California
Atlantic
78
anomaly,
west ramp.
and the Bermuda Triangle, where airplanes may have been known to encounter a difficulty or two over time. So the magnetic poles are on a collision course, at a point near the
Continue on
magnetic
California
maximum point
78
of Earth,
west
the
for
Dragon's
12 miles.
Triangle, with the other side of the world, where the other pole would be, happening to sit next to the magnetic minimum point of Earth in the Bermuda Triangle. This is not your normal polar wander. This is a true shift, and Earth is already down approximately 20% in magnetic field strength and decreasing. As if all these coincidences aren't enough, there is one more, and it is the big one.
I decided that a magnetic reversal had an awful lot to do with the dinosaur extinction. And then the more I researched, I realized that magnetic reversals also, as far as I'm concerned, trigger ice ages, and that they return in a cycle, in a regular pattern that we should actually be able to predict. When you have the onset of an ice age, of course, here's the conundrum. The conundrum is that you've got to have a very large, rapid accumulation of glacial ice, which requires that the climate be cold enough that ice does not melt, disappear through seasonal melting. At the same time, you have to increase the amount of evaporation from the oceans in order to loft this much moisture in the air that you precipitate out as snow that ultimately is compressed into glacial ice. The problem is, as you can see, is that it requires heat. So there's the kinds of conundrums that we're confronted with when looking at the sea. Our predecessors from a few generations ago had it a lot easier because they could imagine no process took 100,000 years or more. We don't have that luxury anymore.
A recent paper in the world's #1 geophysics journal highlights this disaster that looms on the geological horizon, but it's not something that happens hundreds of thousands of years apart.
We call them excursions, magnetic excursions, which is, a term that's well integrated in the literature now. And these are very short-lived reversals, but they're associated with minima in field intensity, and it's the minima in field intensity that are implicated because when you have low field strength, you enhance UVR.
How do you go from the heat and energetic input of the solar blast to an ice age? The answer will ultimately determine whether a solar aspect is a superflare or a micronova.
Sometimes admitting you don't know, at least your mind is open to look for more evidence. Right now, the pressing issue is, if I'm right that this next iceberg cycle is going to be when the reversal happens, I'm going to be like 99 years old. And some of you are probably not going to make it either in 27 years. But it's for the children and grandchildren and unborn generations.
Oddly, as vastly more energetic as a nova event would be than a solar flare, it may bring about more of the cooling effects to our planet. To explain the ice ages occurring with the magnetic reversals, we must actually look to either that nova-like event or the tilting of the Earth's crust, which vexed Einstein for a solution he never found beneath our feet. The sun does not bulge in blatant disrespect of physics. It has a secret. Its cycles always build to greater crescendos, and the great solar blast could truly disrupt our entire planet. While Vogt does not advocate for a tilt of Earth, he does advocate for a reversal of rotation. The stories of the sun rising in the wrong place, the stories of the long night where tribes believed the sun might never rise again, the stories of the sun standing still in the sky. All of those ancient stories from around the world complement those found in the rock. Interestingly, either a 90-degree tilt and tilt back and forth, as was described by Chan Thomas, Albert Einstein, and Major White, or the rotation reversal advocated by Vogt, both leave evidence of the poles residing in the same positions over millions of years, cycle after cycle bouncing back to the same places, such that if you were to look over long periods of time, you might think the pole has never moved at all. Here, it is Einstein's hitting a brick wall that actually gives us our best chance to know what's happening. Like Chan Thomas and all who came before him, Einstein saw the tilting of the crust.
Okay, so here's your little bit of the Bible starts in the beginning, and then you'll see that these shifts and all this kind of stuff. There's a big creation and the bloom, so to speak, of the humans. And you get into some of the other books that are not in the Bible, that are biblical in nature, and some of them talk about before, and some of them talk about the heavenly realms and stuff like that. And it's pretty interesting to see how this 6,000 year cycle that they're seeing or whatever, and then you look at the from in the beginning up to Moses, 2,000 years, and then 2,000 years to Jesus, and now here it is, 2,000 years, give or take a little bit. And I think that they're saying these 6,000 year cycles. Okay, the Bible explains that there will be a 1,000 year, a millennial reign, where everybody, all the humans, will be here on the earth, and they will adhere to Christ as King, and they will uphold the law of God. Okay, so You know what I mean? And all that. I think that was the first 2,000 years where it went into the ark. Anyway, it is my opinion that the sun is the reflection of God. And when you see, there's like this daily report thing. This is a documentary, but it's called Suspicious Observer. You need to go to his channel and check that out. And he has a daily news thing. I posted a couple of them, and they are exceedingly interesting. And the Bible explains that this millennial reign, after that, there will be one last temptation, and then after that, the evil's permanently locked up, and then because the people are lawfully conducting themselves gracefully, appropriately in every situation. That's what the new earth, that's the peace and all that is. So you'll see an absence from the body present with the Lord, and then we see the new earth, like a rebirth, like being born again. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like the ultimate dad doing the ultimate dad joke. For real. I mean, for real. Like, not even slightly playing right now. I'm literally saying that these things, the whole creation and the whole process is the ultimate dad joke from the ultimate dad, from the Father, from Abba, from the Creator. And that's why we are the way we are. You know, we're made in His image. We were created in His image. We are creative, just like He is, and it's a beautiful thing. And all observational science is looking at what the Creator created. They're looking at creation, and they are reverse engineering it to a degree. They're checking evidence like a detective and stuff like that. You know what I mean? They're figuring it out. And those that look to the Father and they put Him first in everything, He will add everything to you. And that's because while you're looking at Him, like a moth goes to a light, you know what I mean? Like when you're driving, you know, you'll subconsciously go wherever you're looking. You'll follow your surroundings, all this stuff. So as you make that choice to surround yourself with the intimate knowledge, and He'll give you these different revelations. He gives you the stuff. It's just like when you're learning to drive a semi-truck, everybody says the same thing. Oh, it was so hard to back up, and one day it just clicked. So it's like diligent training.
In 2 miles, take exit 4 for Emerald Drive.
And then boom, it just clicks, and you can back the trailer in the spot. And it's all kinds of stuff is like that, you know. And you throw in like marriage and getting to know your wife and stuff like that, and it's like all this difficult stuff, and then it just clicks, you know. And then like you get to the next level, the next age, the stage in your life, in your marriage, in your career, in your walk with God. You know what I mean? And here we observe the earth going through these different ages and stages and stuff, and the increasing capacity and ability, and then the increase of the enemy trying to tear it down. The enemies waging war against the saints, and the saints currently don't even realize they're saints. They don't even see it. He's the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And you go look at a homestead with 5 generations living on the property that are producing and providing everything they need right there on like 40 acres or 200
In a half
acres,
mile,
whatever.
take exit 4 for Emerald Drive.
King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So rock out, y'all, and dig in. Go get them.